Dennis, if you're ready, we can get started.
We didn't show the award certificate like that. That's
I don't know what happened there.
okay. We'll get started then. Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to the 481st Imagine Greater Buffalo program and the 102nd virtual Imagine lecture hosted by our wonderful Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN, as I call it, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. So if you have a question or comment, please, you can type it in to the chat box and we'll go through as many as possible at the end of the presentation. We are recording this program, so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels. And we hope you share this link as well as other previous programs links with your friends and networks. Today is a special program. It's our 13th anniversary. We started this Imagine Greater Buffalo program in December of 2009. And it's wonderful to have a featured speaker to help celebrate this with us. That's Beth Kinsman Gosch. Beth is the executive director of the Western New York Foundation and has provided inspiration and leadership in the development of the foundation's grant-making initiatives since 2005. Beth is a former chef. She worked in numerous establishments across the Northeast and Midwest for 20 years before hanging up her apron strings. She was the founder and proprietor of a long-established retail wholesale pastry company and ended her hospitality career as a restaurant consultant. She transferred her business acumen into the position of CFO for a multi-corporate real estate and construction management company right here in Buffalo, New York. Beth has always had a keen interest in assessing and developing small and mid-sized businesses. Now we're going to hear how that transition happened from Beth to being to today's topic. So let's hear that from Beth Kinsman Gosch. Beth, take it away.
Okay, I think I'm all set up. Can you hear me? Great.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me today, Dennis and company. It's a pleasure to be joining you. And I was looking at the participant list and see some friends. So hello, friends, and hello, interested members. I'm happy to be talking to you today about an important fund in Buffalo, New York called Fund for the Arts. So although I am here as the executive director of the Western New York Foundation, I'm actually here in my capacity as chair of Fund for the Arts. So that is going to be the topic of our conversation today. I have a lot to cover, so hopefully I don't go too fast, but I know we have some time at the end to ask some questions. So what is Fund for the Arts? Fund for the Arts is currently made up of 7 funders consisting of public, private, family, and corporate foundations from across the region who are pooling their funds and joining forces to make a greater impact in the arts and cultural sector. Different from independent foundations, the fund supports sector-wide capacity building initiatives, research and assessment, and occasionally emergency support during extraordinary times. It serves as a place for funders to convene and learn about the arts and cultural sector, and then provides us an opportunity to collaborate and distribute funds distribute funds collectively based on those learnings. This fund has always been administered by the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo. So a special shout out to the leadership and vision at the team at the foundation. As you can see, the 7 current funders are listed here, and we continue to meet on a quarterly basis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history because I think it's important, and I think a lot of our current work stems from the history. But we were originally convened as an emergency response fund to the county budget cuts in 2005. Some of you may remember the red and green budget during the Giambra era, where, you know, we certainly saw our parks closing down, our museums hours cut, you know, our security system, you know, compromised, and lots of county workers lost their jobs during this period of time. So at that time, 8 local foundations came together and raised $600,000 to distribute to 42 organizations that had really been impacted by these cuts. And then in 2009, so we did the emergency crisis, and that was kind of the fund, and that was it. And then in 2009, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo thought it would be really great to bring funders back together and see if there was some work we could do to strengthen the sector collectively. And so we came back and we developed a capacity building initiative in partnership with the Kresge Foundation. And we supported 17 organizations in capacity building consulting to really have them take a look at their infrastructure and see where there was potential to move to a new level. And potentially, you know, obviously to be able to sustain cuts in the future from government or other sources. And so we were also, as part of that initiative, there was a peer learning element that was extremely popular, which allowed the different folks within the groups, the 17 organizations that were funded for this initiative and others, to really teach and learn from each other. And that was very popular and really served to build some deeper relationships in the arts and cultural organization. And so it was a great experience, I think, for both the funders to gather together to really learn from each other and understand all of our history in this sector. But it was also great to watch projects develop across the region. And then around that time, in 2010, the Erie County Arts Council started to implode and was closing its doors. And because we were meeting together and feeling like we were building something, we thought we really wanted to invest in an assessment of the sector and see what kind of structure could replace the Arts Council. And then at that time, there was a lot of focus on regional work. So we brought in an organization called Partners in Performance to assess our region's arts and cultural sector and make recommendations for what a new structure to replace the Arts Council might look like. And from that assessment, really developed 2 major initiatives that we have been doing for the last 10 years. So the first was called Art Service Initiative. It was originally called Art Service Initiative for the first 10 years, now has had a new name, Art Service Inc. So they don't sound like they're temporary. They're here to stay and doing great work. And these, not only did they take over the deck grants that the Arts Council was distributing in the community, now known as the Statewide Community Regrants Program, which provides state funding grants coming down from NISCA out into the arts organization group in small and mid-sized grants. But they really served for us as an organization that could provide professional development and technical assistance to the sector. And as I said, Fund for the Arts is really, we don't focus on individual groups, but we focus on the sector and how can we improve the capacity. And then under that umbrella, there were certain initiatives that we supported along the way or seeded, things like Give for Greatness, which was an opportunity for fundraising in the sector through different events like Lawyers for the Arts, et cetera, to raise awareness around the arts and support for the arts. And then Arts Access, provides individuals and families who receive income-based public assistance in Western New York an opportunity to access the arts and sector environment with no barriers attached. It even includes, not only does it include passes to 42 different arts organizations, but can also provide the transportation to get these individuals and families to the different shows across the region. During the COVID era, we once again had to kick in that extraordinary time for emergency fundraising, and we seeded an emergency relief grants program through ASI to support the arts and cultural sector at the beginning of COVID, trying to just provide some relief with some operational support. And then lastly, the other things we have we partnered with Art Services on is funding the Arts and Economic Prosperity Report. That does a report every few years, the last one in 2017, and there'll be a new one coming out in 2023. But it really shows the economic impact that the arts have in our community. For instance, in 2017, the report showed that there is $352 million industry, local industry, supporting over 10,000 jobs, and that for every dollar invested in the arts, there's a $10 in economic impact. So this has been a really great investment for us, and like I said, one we continue to support. The other major initiative that came out of that assessment was supporting, looking through the lens of arts and education, was supporting the Arts Partners for Learning program that was umbrellaed under Young Audiences of Western New York, recently renamed Arts for Learning. And this was an opportunity for them for Yanni to expand their roster of individual artists to a roster of cultural organizations. And so over the years, they've partnered with several organizations to provide in-school arts integrated curriculum. It allowed these arts organizations to reach new markets and new audiences. It provides a very strong partnership within the area schools. There's a professional development aspect to this. So there's coordinated professional development and technical assistance, and it really has served to strengthen the pipeline of teaching artists. So those are the kind of the, we've done some other things along the way, little projects here and there, but those two groups are the two groups that we have supported and will probably continue to support in the long run. And I'm going to shift now to talking a little bit about so there's three that we are focused on currently. One is Cultural Planning Initiative, which is a regional initiative, the Western New York Arts Learning Initiative, and then the ongoing support of Art Service Initiative. So the cultural planning is really an opportunity, for the arts community to really strengthen their messaging and narrative around the key role they play in communities, and really wanting to expand their approach to applying cultural resources to civic priorities, position the arts, culture, and creativity as a priority for investment and engagement, and to really develop and sustain support so that we can really bring in a thriving arts and cultural ecosystem. And I will tell you right now, there's probably not a sector that really needs that attention more than the arts and cultural sector right now. So the first group that came to us was Erie County. They had already started the process and asked if Fund for the Arts would consider supporting the plan. And of course, we were very enthusiastic about the idea. And they were pretty clear that they wanted that the plan should stay a Buffalo and Erie County plan. And over the years, there's been lots of discussions around cultural planning. And we agree that this is an important, for them to stay separate was important, because every county and every organization has kind of some different nuances and needs. So what the Fund for the Arts funders decided was that we would love to fund the project, but we would also want to see some coordination amongst other counties. And so how can we support the different counties in cultural planning, but weave each plan into each other? So we decided that we were going to actually support 4 regional cultural plans. As I talked about, the Buffalo and Erie County plan was one. Niagara County will be another. GLOW would like to band together, and that's Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming County. And then, although we don't have a confirmation yet, we're also hoping to include the Tri-County Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny County plan. So each of these plans will be independently designed, but in each plan there will be some subchapter really coordinating efforts between the different plans. We're very excited about that. The other initiative that we're looking at is the Western New York's Arts Learning Initiative. And although we were very happy with supporting arts and education with Arts Partners for Learning, we didn't see a model that was necessarily sustainable, nor did we see a lot of growth. So we were very happy that there was programming in the school, and we thought that the product was a quality product, but it really was going to be, we would support that amount, we'd get a certain amount of programming, and then we'd have to re-support over and over again. So we really wanted to look at how do we really look at an initiative that has potential for growth and has potential to leverage new and different dollars, and how can we expand the arts and learning opportunities across our region. And this is where really the Western New York Learning Initiative came together. We had 2 kind of outstanding organizations that were focused on arts and education in our region, and that was Chautauqua Institute and Arts for Learning Western New York, as I said, formerly Young Audiences of Western New York. And we asked them if there was some way that they could join forces and potentially move into some of the schools that received BOCES funding, because there is a product out there, a resource called COSERS. They're cooperative services that are state dollars that are generally left on the table that will support things like arts and education. And was there some way that if we developed programs in new areas, that we might be able to leverage some of those COSER dollars to sustain them as we continue to invest in growth and expansion of the program. So I think I covered this a little bit, but we really are, the project is really looking to provide whole school learning experiences in 16 schools in 8 counties of Western New York. This will take several years to accomplish, over a decade actually. We want to develop deep and continuing relationships with schools that foster consistent interactions with the arts in these participating schools. And as I said, we want to develop the misspelling of BOCES, my apologies, COSER program integrated into this to sustain the model over the long run. So what does Chautauqua Institute bring to this? They will really focus on the professional development workshops and demonstration classes. They are a member of the Kennedy Center Partners in Education and certified by New York State Board of Ed as a CTLE provider, so that educators can earn credits for all these workshops. And so they really will focus on integrating art strategy that incorporates the best practices across the country. So they will really coordinate the professional development. And then Arts for Learning, they will be coordinating the actual partnerships for each participating school. And they'll be providing 6 weeks residency programs for each grade level. They'll facilitate 288 individual workshops and provide services to over 1,200 students across 2 counties. So the plan is that these two will go together into 2 counties at a time and work over a period of 2 years to develop relationships, programming, professional development. And by the 3rd year, we're hoping the schools will integrate it into their budgets or be able to bring in some of those co-share dollars to support the programming, moving forward. At that point, the partners will move over and support other counties. So we're very excited. We see a lot of potential here with the partnership between these 2 excellent organizations and the potential for growth, expansion, and sustainability. And then the last thing I will talk about, which is really outside the realm of the work we're doing, but I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar, things that we're hearing from the community. There's a long, long list, but I thought I would just highlight some of the things that the community should be aware of and where you think you can, show your support or show up or help in any way. I think the arts and cultural sector will greatly appreciate all and every effort within this community. But, for a lot of us, COVID has ended more or less. I mean, we know it hasn't ended and we're still dealing with illnesses and sometimes fatalities. But a lot of us kind of have tried to go on and live normal lives. I will say that COVID continues to plague the sector greatly, particularly the performing arts sector. There are still lots of cancellations, ending of product, loss of revenue. Audiences are coming back slowly. And so I just want to make sure that everybody recognizes that for this sector, there's still some pain points, and this will probably continue for several years. So I think, donor support, volunteer support, think tank support to anybody that within this field would be greatly appreciated. The other thing we also see and continues to be frustrating is that there still continues to be limited resources for frontline arts groups. And these are the groups working on the front lines in marginalized and under-resourced communities. Access to dollars to develop the programs that are really beneficial to the communities and appropriate, culturally appropriate, still struggling to raise dollars. So examples of some of these groups might be Locust Street Arts Center and Squeaky Wheel, Buffalo Art Studio, Ujima, El Museo. These are all groups that would benefit greatly from more attention, both financially and through support. The other thing we're seeing is what we're calling the Great Resignation. A lot of leadership turnover in the arts and cultural community, and not necessarily a bench, moving up behind them. Now, there's lots of reasons for this resignation, but not the least of them is truly burnout. And I think just this COVID residue and the amount of what I think was that really really added to their stress. Now, I'm not saying that's why they're all resigning, but it is an issue, and it is something that we all have to be concerned about and think about, and for future learnings, right? Building those bench and supporting up and coming leadership. And then, of course, just the dollars that are no longer directed towards the sector because of other looming community crises we've seen with COVID, right? The food crisis and hunger crisis, the technical and internet divide, racial inequities and social justice issues. So there's just a lot of competing needs in this community. And unfortunately, sometimes the arts and cultural sector, they move to the bottom of the food chain is for no lack of a better term. So all that to say is that, we find the sector is important. It is important for our communities in building awareness and helping us, to make the change we want to see. So I put that in as a final plug. And with that, I will end my presentation and turn it back to Dennis.
Well, Beth Gosch, that was a very, very good summary. And I'm intrigued by your background, and we'll make this connection. Most of us see the arts as a finished product. We experience a performance, but what you've helped us do is much like a chef. Know all the ingredients, all the infrastructure that has to go in to getting that wonderful dessert or meal, or it just doesn't appear magically. And it sounds like you're, through this fund, is certainly playing a significant part in the county's efforts to organize itself around the culturals and see itself as a major part of its structure of businesses, if you will, the financial aspects, the 10-to-1 return you alluded to. My hat's off to you. Now we're going to see what types of questions our audience might have. Caitlin, do you see any questions coming in?
Yeah. So the first one I have is a comment question. Erie County currently understands and supports well the arts and culture sector as an important part of the local economy. Is the city of Buffalo doing anything in terms of funds or other support? Does the fund get involved in lobbying?
Thank you for the question. I'll answer the second first. We do not get involved in lobbying. Like I said, we will support the sector and have others support others doing that kind of work. I know Art Service Initiative just completed a strategic plan, and the call out from the community was more advocacy work. Very strong call out for more advocacy work for multiple reasons, building awareness, but also, building the statement for support of the arts in our city, county, and state governments. And that is something that Art Service Inc. is really looking at and trying to define what advocacy for the sector will look like. So that answers the second question. So no, we do not get involved in lobbying. Yes, the county under Poloncarz' leadership has been very favorably supporting the sector. The city of Buffalo has a arts commission that is supposed to be supporting public arts. I would say that we're not seeing a lot of partnership from our view here as far as the city supporting the sector in any meaningful way. I know that they are using the rescue funds to try to offer support, but I think with any regularity, we're not seeing. And when we look at revenue streams, we very seldom see City of Buffalo support in many of these organizations.
Caitlin, I see a hand up. Would you make sure that you put it out that the audio is not on, so they have to submit it as a chat?
Yeah, I will do that. I have another question though. What do you think is the greatest challenge facing the arts and culture sector in 2023?
I think there's a lot of challenges, and I can't think of a better time to do cultural planning than in 2023. But I do think when I mentioned the looming kind of community crises, that is a challenge to the sector itself, that it was already a sector, with limited resources, and we don't have large philanthropic, organizations that other communities have that support the arts and cultural sector. So I do worry about resources for the sector and what kind of impact that's going to have. I also think because of COVID and the George Floyd riots, a lot of our local philanthropic and corporate philanthropic dollars are being refocused, and I fear that some of those dollars will be refocused away from the arts and cultural sector. So I think resource generation will probably be a very, very serious issue for the sector. And like I said, I think continuing residue COVID issues will continue to plague them for the next several years. And this resignation as well. I think I covered the really big ones today, but there are certainly others.
I have another question. It seems that Albright Knox is getting so much money, government and donors. Do we have enough funds to share the pot with the smaller groups?
Well, I think that's always been, it's a great question. It's always been something, and maybe something this community has to grapple with. We tend to look at funding through the lens of economic development. And so a lot of the large organizations that can bring in tourists and, generate opportunities, get a larger share of the dollars, Albright Knox being one of them. And so I think in this community, the small and mid-sized organizations are left quite often to fend for themselves. I'd like to think that the fact that we could raise so much money for the Albright Knox, that there's dollars out there that we didn't know was available to the sector are available. And I do think some of the advocacy work that'll be moving forward will really be looking at what is the case statement to support the sector, why is it important to support the sector, but in particular, those small and mid-size organizations that certainly generate a lot of, assets, community assets, economic, development, etc. So we have some work to do. So I'm not sure if I answered that question, but I hope I did.
That's all I have so far. So,
Beth, I'll ask, there are so many smaller organizations. Do they have an open line to you somehow that they can reach you with creative ideas? Are they automatically plugged into the cultural infrastructure that you're working so hard, I think, to develop?
Yeah, I mean, that is the role of the Art Service Initiative, right? They really are the overarching kind of go-to service for the sector. So I think in general, when everybody that's the line of communication between the sector and Art Service Initiative. As far as trying to look at sector-wide concerns and trying to figure out solutions for them. Fund for the Arts is, it's not a large pool of funds. It's significant enough that we can support this cultural planning and this expansion of arts and education across our region. But, it's not the solution to the resources needed. And then, of course, many of our foundations support the arts. in all honesty, I know in our foundation, our support for the arts and cultural sector was growing, beyond, at least sometimes some years, 50% of our support went to the sector. But since COVID and George Floyd riots, we are really reorienting our focus, and I don't know what that percentage is going to look like. So, do we as a foundation always try to keep our doors open and build, keep those relationships and understand the needs? Yes. Can we as a smaller foundation address them all? Unfortunately, no.
Good. Any last questions, Caitlin, that have come in?
No.
Well, Beth, thank you very much for a wonderful program today. Beth Gosch is, Beth Gosch is a talent here in Buffalo that helps our cultural institutions not only thrive, but I trust going forward even more collectively, being a blessing to our community. So I'll thank all of you for joining us today. We'll see you here on Zoom on Tuesday on January 3rd, as we welcome in 2023 with Timothy Murphy, a SUNY Distinguished Professor of Medicine, Microbiology, and Immunology. As I mentioned, this is the anniversary of the 13th year for the Imagine Greater Buffalo series. So my special thanks to all of you for supporting it over the years, and look for your continued support going forward. I'm Dennis Galucki, wishing you a blessed Christmas and holiday season. Be well,